the follow-on manager come into place. So it's and this comes to the side of ethics. So when your job is to help the oncoming person come in, you don't apply for that job. So simple as that.
And Kari Ann, what is your managerial positions that you have had or that you have held that make you qualified for county supervisor?
Okay. Well, I've run a number of businesses, started them from scratch and built them up, sold them off or handed them over to other people. Beyond that, when I was 18 years old, I was the deck boss on a commercial fishing boat. That position made me responsible for people's lives. It was a crew of 4, along with the captain, and the decisions I was making at 18 years old were significant decisions. They had to do with budgeting, they had to do with safety and well-being of the crew. That would be where I started. I have run a first aid training agency. I've run other businesses where I've come in on a volunteer basis. They were friends of mine who were struggling with their businesses, and I've come in and turned around their finances and their morale with policy and procedure to get them into a position where not only were they no longer in the red, but they were well on their way to being successful in those businesses.
And this is directed to you, Duce. Is there a process in place for residents to submit complaints and concerns regarding county offices, departments, or taxes? If so, are they being tracked and followed up on? And does the person filing the complaint hear back on any discovery or resolution? And moving forward, how would you deal with the complaint in a better manner?
So I know where this question came from. And there we do have a policy where it's being reviewed to see if it needs to be updated. But to me, I say a comical question, not because the issue of people complaining is comical, but that somebody is worried about a policy that they couldn't get their hands on when they wanted to make an issue of it. Like I told you earlier, I would invite anybody, if you haven't been there, come visit me at my office. You can walk in anytime, catch me on the sly, so I can't make it up, and you can see all the notes on my desk that I'm working on. So I hear complaints from citizens all the time. I am not hard to find, and that's my job. I don't think I'm always as complaints, but a lot of times they are, but it's constituent services. It's a big part of my job. So we're working on a formal policy, but you mentioned taxes. That would go to the assessor, which is where I think the question's coming from. But yeah, I think we do a very good job of dealing with folks all the time, and I follow up with people all the time. That's why my notes are there. Most Fridays, the office is closed, but I go in. I spend my Fridays catching up on all my phone calls. If I haven't called somebody, I'm calling them on Friday to keep everybody in the loop on what's going on. I want to touch real quick on the employee morale, something I'm extremely proud of. One of my goals when I went into the county back in 2017 was to change the culture of our county. Again, we didn't get real far in the first 4 years, but this last 3.5, we've done an amazing job of turning things around and created a new culture. I'm sure there are some folks that aren't happy or disgruntled. That's always going to be the case when you have a few hundred employees. But I challenge you to go visit with employees and talk to them and find out how much happier they are today than they have been in a long, long time. The other thing I want to share with you is, I kind of wish I would have got that question about management, but I invite you to go to my website, duceminor.com. My resume is listed on my website. You can read it, and it doesn't just talk about friends and things in general that you can't drill down on and find out what it was about. My resume is there. You can see where I've been, what I've done, what my accomplishments are, and my successes. So they're real. They're there for you to look at. You can check them out, and like I said, I encourage you to do that because I'm very proud of it.
So both Kari Ann and Philip have been asked. So Duce Minor has been adamantly accused of corruption, both by an anonymous letter and large signs throughout the county. Did you have anything to do with this directly or indirectly? And can you give any provable examples of his corruption? You can go first.
I've had nothing to do with the letter or the signs, but I'll give an example of corruption. And this happened back in 2017. I applied for the job of a county administrator, and I was brought on for 5 days to see if I would fit. And during that 5 days, I provided a high-performance assessment of the county. I had a chance to talk with every director. This was a lot of effort put into work. I provided that to Duce. He said thank you. And then I wasn't even told whether I had the job or not, but then somebody else was hired. And then several months later, I met that person at the Arizona City Managers Association conference. And he said, yeah, that was a great assessment. And he used a lot of that stuff. This was before he started having problems in the county. So I would say that's a pretty corrupt thing, that you use somebody's effort and intellect and you give it to somebody else to work on. And again, I never got paid for any of that work or service. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, because hey, I put a lot of effort into that. And again, it's not about the pay, but it's just kind of insulting that not even say thank you for doing that or even being credited for that.
Would you like a 1-minute rebuttal?
Did you want her to go?
You can go. You can
That's
rebut
great.
him.
I would never in a million years, I've thought about it many times, but I would never in a million years have brought up Phil's application to be county administrator because I don't want to embarrass Phil. Phil was given the opportunity because he was local to job shadow the interim county manager who was in place at that time. That wasn't something we afforded to all the different candidates. Phil was not asked for any level of assessment of the county. He was given an opportunity to job shadow. Unfortunately, that did not work after about a half a day, and the administrator did not want to follow through with that. So instead, we had Phil visit with each department. We allowed him to go visit with the departments. That did not go well. Now, I wouldn't have brought it up because it's not pretty, but it was unfortunate for Phil that was not well received by the departments, and they were calling me. So it's funny how in one sentence, I hear people say I should listen to people and talk to the employees. Trust me, that was something that came back to me very strongly. And he was not selected to be the county administrator, obviously. But it was a process, and nobody asked for any kind of assessment.
Kari Ann?
So the short answer to that is no. If I'm going to say something about somebody or I'm going to put it in writing, my name's going to be on it. That's attached to my integrity. I hold that very close and dear to my heart. It is a foundation of not only myself but my family. So no, I've not had anything to do with the signs or the letter that came out. I don't support that letter that came out because I think you need to put your name onto that if you're going to call somebody out that way. As far as corruption, no, I don't have anything to say that Duce has been corrupt that I can put here on paper in front of you, and that's the standard that has to be met for me. What I will say, though, is that there's been several instances that I can turn proof to of him bullying citizens in this county, and that is one of the big reasons why I'm running. And those can be found on Board of Supervisors meetings, so that is not hearsay, that is not something untangible. And I think that it's a very disgusting thing to do, and certainly not representative of who we should be as elected officials.
Well, I could, if you want to stay after, I'll show you my phone. You want to talk about bullying, the latest text that came out. And nobody puts their name on it. It's a group. The group's been identified. They're always together, but nobody admits to doing anything. But it's fine. I think it's worked against them, not in their favor. This is not the first time I've heard Kari Ann use the term bully. I would love to hear the examples of that. Now, I am tall, relatively speaking. I have a loud voice. It's a little hoarse right now because I had a cough last weekend I'm recovering from. I can't change those things. So being tall and having a strong voice can sometimes be intimidating. I don't try to make it that. But again, I work with the people all throughout the county all the time. Talk to the Bouse Chamber of Commerce. Talk to your Quartzsite Town Council. Talk to the Parker Chamber of Commerce. Talk to the local businesses in town. You can go find out whether or not I'm a bully if you go talk to people, but it's not my style.
Kari Ann, this was directed to you. How do you plan to solve the corruption in the Building and Development Department of LaPaz County? Can there be an audit or an investigation of this department to check employees' certifications and background checks?
Okay, so community development, yeah, that is one of the departments that deals with the public probably the most on a day-to-day basis. What they really need is policy and procedure. I keep coming back to that. They need an operations manual. I had asked for a public records request on that, was told that there wasn't one, so this doesn't just come from me imagining maybe they don't. They need the structure and the foundation in there in order for them to do their job properly, and they need people with experience in building. You know, you're dealing with contractors and you're dealing with owners who want to build their own structures. You need somebody in that department that really has a good, solid understanding of actual building and construction in order to make that a smoother department. So it does need a lot of help. A lot of that is just policy, procedure, and operations.
For everyone, what is your position on the voting machines, and would you be in favor of and an advocate for paper ballots hand counted? Why or why not? I believe you're first.
Me? I will get to that. I'm going to use my time just briefly to address because I heard the word corruption connected to community development. We had and I know where that question came from. I can tell by the language, but that is a horribly improper, rude, and disgusting term to use with those folks who work in there. It's great to say we need to have people that have degrees and have we would love to have that. We're sending our folks to school to develop them in that. But in LaPaz County, we don't have expertise in every area. We just don't. And we can't afford to attract people from other areas at this point. When I was at Pace, I had grant people who gave us money who said, why don't you have people with college degrees in these positions? And I said, because when we have a vacancy and we put an ad out, we sit and watch the door praying somebody warm and above ground will walk in. Because if they can get all the way here and they filled out the application correctly, we're going to train them. Because it's hard to find good people. So in the situation with the corruption, they used a poor gentleman. In fact, I'm working with WACOG right now. WACOG may have another way to help him. He doesn't want to follow zoning codes. He claimed that the county employees stole money from him. That was completely illegitimate. They have the record where he gave them money that they didn't ask for. They got the money back to him and got a receipt for it. And so that's just such an improper statement. Remind me what you just asked
Would
me?
you
I did
be
use some
in
time.
favor of eliminating the voting machines and going back to paper ballots hand counted? 1 minute.
Yeah, if we could figure out how to afford to do it, I wouldn't be opposed to it. My bigger concern is mail-in voting. I was afraid of mail-in voting before they approved it in Arizona, and I'm going to tell you as fast as I can, this literally happened last week. I pulled into my residential area where we have the turnout and we have our mailboxes. A neighbor was at the mailboxes. I waited for her. She left. I pulled up. I went to get my mail, and on top of the mailbox were 2 mail-in ballots. I was like, what the hell is this? I was actually shaking because I'm a candidate, and I was like, oh my God. So I looked at the names on them. One of them was the significant other of that neighbor, so I followed her back down to her house, and she had 2 in her hand. Well, what had happened briefly is apparently the mail person set those up on top of the mailbox and then forgot them. So 2 of them blew on the ground. That's the 2 she had. The other 2 stayed on top. Those are the ones I found. So she got her 2 back. I took the other 2 to the other neighbor and I'm like, these are your ballots, but I found them at the mailbox. When people talk about mail-in voting, I know it's popular, but it scares me to death. We've had many votes in this county settled by 1 vote. We've had tie votes. Those were 4 votes that got left behind. And they got there eventually, fortunately, by happenstance. But think about that. That could have changed the election. So there's so many problems that I have with mail-in voting, I can't even get started. So
What would you do to change that?
if it was, well, I would go back in time and Kari Lake would be governor and Sonny would be the majority leader in the Senate, and Leo would be the majority leader in the House, and maybe they would get a bill through that would take mail-in voting away. It won't be popular because a lot of people use it, like 70% of the people use it. But if you look at just that example I gave you,
Agreed.
that's scary.
Philip?
I recall the time in Al-Anbar province, 2007, we had to do the vote, and we had to ink everybody's fingers and figure out everything, and we still had problems with the voting. And I share Duce's concern with the mail vote. This was last election cycle. I found a whole stack of ballots right there in the Quartzsite post office, just sitting there. People were throwing them away, and I put them back in the post office. And when you look at our voter registration list, 10% of those addresses are returned to sender, or there's problems with it. So it's a problem. I don't know. I don't have a good solution. I think we really need to look at that. I'm not opposed to paper ballots. I'm not opposed to other ways of looking at it. I'm naturally distrustful of all things electronic, but we got to come up with a better system to make sure that we do have a good elections process.
Kari Ann?
Yeah, so those decisions largely are going to be made at the legislative level, and what comes back from that is what we're dictated to follow as county supervisors. Again, I agree with the sentiment. Mail-in ballots is problematic. Anything that is connected to a computer these days is terrifying with all of the AI that's coming out. I have grave concerns for our electoral process if we continue to use computers. So I would prefer a paper ballot.
Nice. So this is a long question, but if you can, I would like you to have a short answer. The government, the mainstream media, academia, social media companies, the CDC, the WHO, and others were the biggest propagators and pushers of mis- and disinformation during the COVID pandemic. Many qualified and well-researched sources, including Dr. David Martin, have the evidence that the COVID-19 pandemic was a created attack on the world. With the COVID vaccines now linked to more than 20 million deaths, not to mention destroying economies and mental and physical health of the people with the lockdowns, when the county faces this next created pandemic, if you are elected, how will you protect your constituents from the government and its assigns? I think you went first. Kari Ann?
So what we put into our body is our choice, and I will defend that to the greatest length. The vaccines, the shutdown of our businesses, this sense of telling people that they were either essential or non-essential has a ripple effect that we will feel for decades. And that is one of our inalienable rights, is to what we do to our bodies, and I will protect that with everything I have.
Duce?
This came up at the last one of these, and to be clear, LaPaz County never had a mask mandate. We never required an employee to be vaccinated to work. We never shut the county down. We never locked anybody down. In fact, I personally worked very hard to keep the restaurants alive in our area and other businesses, but the restaurants were hit extremely hard. So there are limitations to what we can do as a county government at county level. But I'm all about people making their own decisions, and I think the evidence is there. Like I said, look at LaPaz County's record in 2020 and what we did, and more importantly, what we did not do. We continued to hold our board meetings. We asked people to stay 6 feet apart in the boardroom, but we didn't turn anybody away. Worked very hard to keep the river open for the tourism. As it turned out, it was the strongest economic summer the Parker Strip has probably ever had and may ever have, because everybody from California, where they were being shut down, came to their homes on the river and lived there for 6 or 10 months, and every day on the river was like Memorial Day. It was just packed. But again, I think we handled it the best we could at our level. For those who wanted vaccines, we went out and did clinics to make them available. We did them here in Quartzsite. I was here personally multiple times helping work the people through them. They weren't required, but they were available if people chose to have them.
Okay. I had the fortune before I retired in the Marine Corps, I was the lead planner for Joint Task Force 505, which is the lead planning effort in the Asia Pacific region. So we got to deal with legitimate pandemic issues like influenza and stuff like that. So being on the Board of Supervisors, you have to make the biggest decision you're making is this, or are we declaring a disaster so that you can have access to the federal funds and things like that. Now, during the time of COVID, I was actually interim manager in a couple of towns, and I was fortunate to work with some very good leaders that were forward leading about it and says, hey, well, we're gonna be smart about this. We're not gonna follow the mass mandates, and we're gonna be respectful of people's rights. And we were fortunate to have sheriffs that were going to defend the people. Sheriff Daniels down in Cochise County was in the county that I was working in at the time. So I kind of follow that. And again, it's a lot of how this particular pandemic was handled that was really wrong and really stepped on our constitutional rights. And again, we got to be very careful the next time it happens that we're not going to let that happen here in LaPaz County.
So since we're short on time, we're going to go to the last question. There seems to be a trend of voters simply voting against another candidate rather than voting for a candidate. So please tell us what you bring to the table that makes us need to vote for you. Philip, you can begin.
Okay. Well, I'll start with, my family's been here in what was once Yuma County, now it's LaPaz County. We've been family, we've owned small businesses here. We've been your rank and file civil servants in the schools and the fire departments, sometimes elected officials, serving in the military. And again, I've had an extraordinary career. I've had a chance to come back. And again, I'm your guy that believes in the Constitution. I believe I can do a better job than the incumbent. And again, it's a positive experience. And again, I believe results and experience matter. And again, you can look at my credentials. You can see them. Again, I'm not a guy that breaks his arm patting himself on the back. But again, if you want that kind of experience, experience in Washington, experience in Phoenix, experience from around the state, a lot of, and that kind of stuff, vote for me. Thank you.
Kari Ann?
So here in LaPaz County, and I'm sure really all over the United States now, people are looking for representation. They're looking for somebody who will hear them, that will listen, that will work with them. And I bring that to the table in bucket loads. I'm running with this in mind. I'm running for you. I don't need the job. There was a call out in a lot of people feeling the same as I did, feeling not represented by the incumbent, and looking for somebody who was going to represent them with everything that they have. And I've stepped up to the table, and I've been here, and I've shown over this last year that I'm going to put that same effort and that same work ethic into every day of the 4 years until we get to the next election. So I do hope that if that's what you're looking for, somebody who's going to represent you, who is going to be cautious and mindful of our financial situation, who's going to strengthen our county departments, that I'm the girl for you, and I hope that you will vote for me on Tuesday.
Well, I've been so gifted in the time I've lived in this area. I grew up in Orange County, California, started in Compton, California, through 4th grade, then to Orange County. And then I made the choice at like 19 years old to move to Parker full time. I knew I enjoyed this rural lifestyle of this area, so it's a choice. But I have had so many wonderful opportunities in my life here and had so many leadership positions over the years. I think I've proven myself to folks. I have campaigned multiple times in this community for school board, for county supervisor, but I've never run a negative campaign. I won't do that. It's been tempting a couple of times, and people have wanted me to sometimes, but it's not my style. I'm very proud of my record. I hope you review it and take it seriously. my buddy Bill over here, who's my campaign manager, because he was my campaign manager when I ran for school board back in 1980 or something like that for the first time. So we're kind of having this fun with this, but we coached Little League together for 8 years in Parker. And in fact, my son's here, we coached him. I cut his tongue in half one time. That'll teach him to never back out of a pitch again. But why am I bringing up Little League? Because one of our jobs when we were coaches was you coached one of the 2 games that night, and then you had to umpire the other one. Well, let me tell you, if you haven't had the experience, you need to go find a Little League game and be the umpire and be at the home plate when a kid slides in and the catcher tags him, and you have to call him safe or you have to call him out. It doesn't matter what the call is. Half of the stands think you're a complete idiot and they want to take you out and hang you. Of course, the other half thinks you should get a trophy because you're the best umpire that's ever been there. That's kind of what it's like when you're in this role. You have to make decisions based on what's in front of you. And some people are going to like those, and some people aren't. But you know, in those Little League games, the next call might go the other way, and this side wants to take me out and hang me over here, and these guys want to give me a trophy. So it's part of the job. You have to, I take this so seriously. I do my homework, I research the issues, and I make my decisions based on what I believe is best for all of LaPaz County. And I know every time I do it, somebody's going to be upset. But that's where you got to have the thick skin and be willing to make those decisions based on that research and the evidence. So I'm proud of my record. I hope you take the time to review it if you haven't already. If you haven't already voted, I hope you vote for me on Tuesday.
Thank you all. I don't know about y'all, but I got to stand up for a few minutes before we start on the next one. Y'all, guess where I'm from?
Bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness, hello loneliness, I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye love, bye-bye sweet caress, hello emptiness, I feel like I could die. Bye-bye my love, goodbye. There goes my baby with someone new. She sure looks happy, I sure am blue. She was my baby till he stepped in. Goodbye to romance, that night again. Bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness, hello loneliness, I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye love, bye-bye sweet caress, hello emptiness, I feel like I could die. Bye-bye my love, goodbye. I'm through with romance, I'm through with love, I'm through with counting the stars above. And there's a reason that I'm so free. My loving baby is through with me.